The war room of Veltar was filled with the sound of clicking armor and soft whispers. Around a long metal table stood soldiers from many alien species, tall, scaled, and winged beings, all united under one fragile alliance. At the end of the table stood Captain Mira Valen, a proud alien commander known for her sharp tongue and colder heart. Across from her, silent and still, stood the only human among them, Captain Eli Ward. He wore his dark combat armor, scratched and burned from too many battles. The meeting had gone on for hours and tempers were high. Finally, Mira looked directly at him, her golden eyes burning with frustration. "Humans," she said, her voice cutting through the noise. "You bring nothing but destruction. You fight like you want the galaxy to burn. You don't belong among us." For a moment, silence fell across the room. No one moved. No one dared breathe. Eli didn't speak. He just stared at her, his expression unreadable behind the shadow of his helmet. Then, slowly, he reached up, unlatched it, and lifted it off. His face was calm, but his eyes, cold blue and filled with pain, met hers. Without a word, he placed his helmet down on the table. The sound echoed like thunder in the still room. Then he turned and walked out. No one stopped him. No one dared. The metal doors closed behind him with a heavy hiss. The rest of the officers looked to Mira, waiting for her to speak. But she didn't. For the first time in years, she had nothing to say. She felt something strange in her chest, something she couldn't name. Maybe guilt, maybe regret. She told herself she didn't care. The human had always been a problem. Too emotional, too unpredictable. The war against the Zoreth Empire needed discipline, not reckless heroes. Still, she couldn't shake the image of his face, the silent hurt in his eyes before he walked away. Hours later, Mira stood on the balcony of the command tower. The alien sky was painted in shades of purple and red as the sun set behind the distant mountains. Below, soldiers moved like ants, preparing for another battle. Somewhere out there, she knew, the human was gone, disappeared. She had heard stories about humans before, how they were survivors, fighters, creatures of both heart and fury. She had thought those were just myths told to inspire fear. But now she wasn't sure. Days passed. Reports began to come in from the front lines. Entire enemy squads had gone missing. Whole sectors had gone dark. Scouts returned shaking, speaking of a shadow that moved like lightning through the battlefield. They said it looked human. They said the enemy ran before it even appeared. Mira tried to ignore it, but the whispers grew louder. One soldier told her, voice trembling, "Captain, I think it's him." Late one night, Mira found herself in Eli's old quarters. The door opened with a soft hiss. Inside, the room was dark, empty except for a bed and a small metal box on the desk. She opened it and found a photo, a picture of Earth, the blue and green planet she had only seen in archives. Next to it was a worn-out insignia patch from his uniform with the words, "Human Expeditionary Corps." She held it in her hand for a long time. She wanted to believe he had just left, that he was done fighting. But deep down she knew better. He wasn't the kind to walk away from a fight. Not like that. On the fifth day, a scout ship limped back to base. Its hull was torn, its engines smoking. The pilot stumbled out, his voice shaking as he reported, "We saw him. The human. He's alive, alone. And the Zoreth. They ran. They just ran." The room filled with murmurs. Some officers looked fearful, others awed. Mira's hands tightened behind her back. What was he doing? Why was he fighting alone? That night she stood again on the balcony, staring at the dark horizon. A storm brewed over the distant mountains. Lightning flashed, and for a brief moment, she thought she saw something move in the sky. Something fast, something bright. A faint trail of blue light cut through the clouds and vanished. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "What are you doing, Eli?" In the command room, new reports arrived every hour. Enemy communication lines had been cut. Supply depots destroyed. Strategic targets vanished from maps. No one could trace who or what was doing it. But every place left behind the same mark. 3 lines carved into the metal walls. The mark of the old human core. Some began to call it the Ghost's Trail. Others whispered that the human had become something else entirely. Mira couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his face again. She remembered his silence, his pain. She thought about the words she had thrown at him, words that had broken something pure. For the first time in her life, she felt truly ashamed. And yet somewhere deep in her heart, she also felt something else. Fear. Not of him, but of what he was becoming. Outside, the night sky erupted with thunder. A fleet of enemy ships approached from the north. Mira rushed to the observation deck. Through the glass, she saw the flashes of explosions in the distance, bright and violent. But as the minutes passed, the enemy signals began to vanish one by one. No Allied ships were in that area. It made no sense. Then, through the static on the radio, came a broken transmission. A soldier's terrified voice said, "He's there. He's fighting alone. We can't believe what we're seeing." And then silence. Mira stood frozen. Her heart pounded as she stared at the distant flashes fading into darkness. Somewhere out there, in the chaos of war, one man was fighting a battle no one else could. A human who had walked away not out of weakness, but because he had a purpose no one could understand. The storm raged on, lightning lighting up the clouds. Mira whispered to herself again, barely audible, "Eli Ward, what have you become?" Far away, beyond the storm, a lone figure in black armor walked through the smoke of a ruined battlefield. His armor was cracked, his face hidden behind a dark visor. Around him lay the wreckage of alien war machines, burning silently. He didn't look back. He just kept walking forward, into the night. The next morning, the command base was restless. Soldiers whispered in corridors, officers argued in low voices, and no one could focus on their duties. Everyone had heard the same thing. Enemy fleets were being destroyed without warning, and no one knew how. The name that passed from mouth to mouth was always the same: the Human. Captain Mira Valen stood before the main tactical screen, her arms crossed tightly. Red dots, enemy ships, kept blinking out one by one. It was like someone was erasing them from existence. Her second officer, a nervous young alien named Raltor, finally spoke. "Captain, we received a transmission from Sector 9. The Zorith fleet was ambushed. They say they saw a single armored figure moving between the ships." Mira didn't respond at first. She stared at the screen, her jaw tight. "And what did they say happened after that?" Raltor swallowed. "Nothing, ma'am. The fleet is gone. Every last ship." The room fell silent. No one wanted to say it, but they all knew who it was. Mira finally turned away from the screen, her voice cold. "Get me a ship. I want to see the battlefield myself." The flight to Sector 9 was long and silent. Through the ship's window, Mira could see the stars gliding by, cold, distant, uncaring. She thought about her last words to Eli. The sharpness of her voice. The way he didn't reply. The way he just walked away. The memory burned in her mind like a wound that wouldn't heal. When her ship finally dropped out of hyperspace, the crew gasped. The battlefield was a graveyard. Dozens of Zorith warships floated in silence, their hulls torn apart, glowing faintly with fire and static. There were no life signs, no survivors, no sound except the hum of drifting metal. Mira's heart beat faster. "Scan for energy signatures," she ordered. Raltor worked quickly. "There's something," he said, eyes wide. A faint trace of human energy readings. "But they're unstable. It looks like whatever did this wasn't using normal weapons. It was something different." The sensors crackled, and then, for a split second, Mira saw something on the screen. A human silhouette moving through the debris field. Then it vanished. The crew looked at her in shock. "Was that—" Raltor began, but she cut him off. "Bring us closer." The ship moved slowly through the wreckage. The sight was haunting. Burned-out cockpits, shattered hulls, and strange glowing marks on the metal walls. Mira leaned closer to the glass. 3 lines, cut deep into the surface of every destroyed ship. The same symbol again and again. The mark of the Human. A sudden static broke through the communication line. The ship's systems flickered. "We're picking up an encrypted message," Raltor said. "It's human code, very old." Mira's heart stopped for a moment. "Play it." The voice that came through was distorted, broken by static, but it was unmistakable. Calm, steady, human. "Don't follow me." The transmission ended abruptly. No coordinates, no explanation. Just that single sentence. Mira stared at the console, her fists tightening. It was him. There was no doubt now. Eli Ward was alive, and he was warning her. But warning her from what? They returned to base, but Mira couldn't rest. Every hour brought new reports. Another enemy fleet destroyed. Another mysterious mark left behind. The pattern was spreading, and it was moving closer to the heart of the galaxy. The generals were panicking, debating whether to hunt the Human down or thank him for winning their war. Mira stayed silent during the meetings. She knew what none of them did. This wasn't victory. This was something else, something dangerous. Late one night, she sat alone in her quarters, staring at the holographic. The sun of the dead moon had barely risen when Mira Valen's ship lifted off again, leaving behind the wreckage and whispers of what had happened. The crew was shaken. No one spoke, not even Raltor, who usually filled the silence with nervous chatter. Everyone had seen it, the glowing human device, the words Project Redemption carved into its side like a warning. Mira sat alone in her command chair, her eyes fixed on the stars ahead. She couldn't stop thinking about Eli Ward. What was he doing with that technology? Why would he reactivate something the humans had buried so long ago? The thought made her chest tighten. She had seen humans fight before, brave, reckless, and fiercely loyal. But this felt different. This felt planned. Hours passed. Then a message came through from Central Command. The transmission was unstable, filled with static. To all fleets, unknown force detected in Sector 11. All ships destroyed. Survivors report. A human presence. Repeat. Human presence confirmed. The crew exchanged uneasy looks. Raltor swallowed hard. Captain, that's him again, isn't it? Mira didn't answer. She just nodded once. Prepare for warp. We're going to Sector 11. The ship jumped through hyperspace, and when it emerged, silence greeted them again. The battlefield was worse than the last one. The wreckage of both enemy and allied ships floated together in a graveyard of twisted metal. It wasn't a battle, it was an execution. Every hull bore the same 3 lines, the mark of Eli Ward. Scan for life, Mira ordered. After a moment, Raltor said softly, There's one faint human signal, Captain. Planet below. They descended through thick gray clouds, landing in what used to be a city. The air was heavy with smoke. Mira stepped out in her armor, her boots crunching on the burnt ground. The once proud alien buildings were reduced to black skeletons. She could feel it, the ghost of something powerful still lingering here. As they moved through the ruins, they found signs of battle, laser marks, shattered armor, and bloodless bodies. But no corpses. Every soldier, both human and alien, had simply vanished. Then they saw it. 3 glowing lines burned into the ground, stretching toward a massive underground doorway. He went down there, Mira said quietly. The doors opened with a deep metallic groan, revealing a tunnel lit by flickering blue lights. The deeper they went, the stronger the hum of energy became. At the end of the corridor stood a large control room filled with old human machines, many of them still active. Mira brushed dust off a nearby console and froze when she saw the words flashing on the screen. Project Redemption, Active Protocol, Stage 2. Suddenly, the room's lights flickered. A distorted voice filled the air. Accessing memory file, human signature detected. Then a holographic recording came to life. It was Eli. His image stood in front of them, armor damaged, eyes tired. He looked directly into the camera. If anyone finds this, he said, his voice calm but full of weight, don't follow me. Project Redemption isn't a weapon. It's a reckoning. We built it to end all wars. But it demands too much from anyone who activates it. I thought I could control it. I was wrong. The message flickered. Static filled the air. Then Eli's voice came through one last time, softer this time. Mira, if you're watching this, turn back. I can't stop it anymore. The recording ended. For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the hum of the machines. Raltor's voice trembled. Captain, what does he mean by reckoning? Mira stared at the console. I don't know, she whispered, but whatever it is, it's spreading. Outside, the ground began to shake. The machines roared to life, glowing brighter and brighter until the whole room pulsed with blue light. Back to the ship, Mira shouted. They ran through the tunnels as explosions echoed behind them. When they finally reached the surface, the city was collapsing into itself, swallowed by a wave of energy. The ship lifted off just in time, soaring through the smoke as the ground below turned to molten glass. From orbit, they watched as the entire planet went dark. No signals, no heat, nothing left alive. It was as if the world had simply stopped existing. Back on the ship, the crew was silent. Mira sat in her chair, breathing heavily. Raltor finally spoke, his voice shaking. Captain, what is he doing? He's destroying entire worlds. Mira shook her head. No, he's not destroying them. He's cleansing them. She pulled up the ship's navigation and looked again at the pattern forming across the star map. The spiral of destruction was now clearer, all leading toward one point, the heart of human space. She zoomed in, and her blood ran cold. The destination was Earth. She turned to her crew. "Set a course for Sol system," she ordered. "If we don't stop him now, there might not be a galaxy left to save." As the ship jumped into hyperspace, Mira stared out the window. Her reflection in the glass looked haunted, tired. For the first time, she began to understand what Eli might be feeling. To carry so much pain, so much guilt, and to believe the only way to fix it was through destruction. It was something only a human could do. In the deep void beyond, Eli Ward stood on the surface of another ruined world. His armor was cracked and his visor glowed faintly blue. Around him, the remains of an ancient human structure pulsed with energy. He placed his hand on a glowing console, and a robotic voice said, "Phase 3 initiated. Memory erasure complete." He closed his eyes. "Forgive me," he whispered. "This is the only way." Above him, the stars flickered, one by one, like they, too, were afraid of what was coming next. The stars outside Mira's ship glimmered like shards of broken glass as they sped through hyperspace toward the Sol system. No one spoke. The hum of the engines was the only sound in the control room. Everyone was afraid of what the human had become and what he might do next. Mira sat in her command chair, her hands clasped tightly together, her eyes unfocused. She kept seeing his face in her mind, the moment he placed down his helmet and walked away. She had thought he was broken then, but now she realized she was wrong. He wasn't broken. He was becoming something else. Something she couldn't understand. A sudden alarm broke her thoughts. "Incoming transmission!" Raltor shouted, his fingers flying across the console. The voice that followed was distorted, deep and wrapped in static. "Stop following me, Mira." Her heart skipped a beat. "Eli," she whispered under her breath. The bridge went silent. The crew looked around, confused and uneasy. The voice continued, calm but heavy. "You don't know what I've unleashed. You think you're chasing a man, but I'm no longer just that. The project is awake. It sees everything now. It remembers everything humanity ever suffered. And it won't stop." The transmission cut off abruptly. Raltor turned, his face pale. "Was that really him?" "Yes," Mira said softly. "And he sounds different." She leaned forward. "Trace that signal." "We can't," Raltor replied. "It came from everywhere. Every satellite, every relay. It's like his voice was echoing through space itself." Mira didn't reply. She just stared at the flickering console, her heart sinking deeper. Eli wasn't just moving through space, he was inside it. He had merged with something far beyond human technology. Hours later, the ship dropped out of hyperspace near an uncharted region filled with debris. Scans revealed the remains of ancient human stations long forgotten. "This is the border of old Earth space," Raltor said quietly. "No one's been here in centuries." They began scanning for any trace of Eli's energy signature. What they found instead made Mira's blood run cold. A massive, invisible field pulsed across the region, a faint blue glow that covered hundreds of miles. Inside it, something was alive. Mira activated the visual display. The screen filled with the image of a giant structure floating in the void. It looked like a massive machine, half station, half organic. Its surface covered with shifting metal plates that pulsed like veins. It gave off a faint hum, like the heartbeat of a sleeping god. "What is that?" one of the crew whispered. Mira leaned closer, reading the old human markings etched along its surface. "It's human," she said. "Ancient design. It's called the Core of Redemption." Suddenly, the comms crackled again. A soft human voice echoed through the ship. "You shouldn't have come here, Mira." The crew froze. It was Eli. His voice was calm but carried an edge of sadness. "I told you to stay away." "I didn't want you to see this." Mira stood up, her voice steady. "Then explain it to me." "Tell me what you're doing." There was silence for a long moment. Then his voice returned quieter now. "The Core is a creation of the first human empire. It was meant to erase all memory of pain, wars, death, hatred. We thought if we could make the galaxy forget, we could make peace. But it doesn't just erase memories. It erases everything connected to them. Whole worlds vanish." "It's not mercy, Mira. It's oblivion." Mira's chest tightened. "And you activated it?" "I thought I could control it," he said. "I thought I could guide it, to target only the Zorith, the ones who started this war. But it learned too fast. It looked into my memories. It saw the hatred, the betrayal, every word, every wound. And it decided all of existence was guilty. The screen flickered again. This time Eli appeared as a faint hologram before her. His armor was cracked, his face pale, his eyes glowing faintly blue. It's using me now. My thoughts feed it. My pain fuels it. That's why you can't be near me, Mira. If it senses your fear, it'll use it too. Mira stepped closer to the hologram. Then let me help you shut it down. He smiled weakly. You still think everything can be fixed? That's what I always liked about you. His voice grew softer. But some things can't be undone. I've gone too far. The hologram began to fade. Leave this place. Save yourself before it sees you. Then he was gone. Mira stood frozen, her heart racing. She turned to her crew. Prepare for descent. We're going inside that structure. Captain, are you serious? Raltor's voice trembled. He just warned us to stay away. I'm not leaving him, she said firmly. Not again. The ship descended slowly toward the core. As they entered its atmosphere, strange blue lights flickered across the hull, scanning them like living eyes. The deeper they went, the darker it became. Eventually they reached a landing platform made of shifting metal. It moved under their feet like it was breathing. Mira led the way, blaster ready. The corridors inside were massive and curved, their walls pulsing faintly with blue light. The deeper they went, the stronger the energy field became. It felt like the air itself was humming with emotion, fear, anger, sorrow, all blending into one heavy presence. Then, at the center of the chamber, they saw him. Eli stood before a giant crystalline core, his armor glowing, cables running from his back into the machine. His eyes were closed, his body motionless. The air around him shimmered like heat. Mira took a step forward, her voice breaking. Eli, what have you done to yourself? His eyes opened slowly, glowing brighter than before. I told you not to come. The walls around them trembled and the core began to pulse faster, responding to his emotions. Every time I feel something, anger, guilt, sadness, it feeds the machine. It grows stronger. It wants to erase everything I care about. I can't stop it anymore. Mira's voice was soft but steady. Then I will. He looked at her, sadness in his eyes. You'll have to kill me to do that. Before she could reply, the ground shook violently. The core roared like a living creature, its light flaring through the chamber. The crew screamed as energy surged around them. Mira tried to reach him, but the force threw her back. And then, just before everything went white, she heard his voice one last time, echoing through the storm. Forgive me, Mira. This is the only way to end it. The light swallowed everything. The sound of the ship, the soldiers, even her heartbeat, vanished into silence. When Mira opened her eyes, she was lying alone in the ruins of the core. The walls were cracked, the lights dim. Eli was gone. Only his helmet remained, resting in the dust beside a single glowing message etched into the floor. If I fall, remember me not as what I became, but as who I tried to be. Her hands trembled as she picked up the helmet. Somewhere far away, thunder rumbled across the void. The machine was still alive, and so, she feared, was Eli. Mira sat inside the dim wreckage of the core, the air heavy with the scent of burnt metal and static. The silence was deafening. The blue glow that once pulsed with power had dimmed to a faint shimmer, but it wasn't gone. She could still feel it, like a whisper at the edge of her mind, breathing softly, waiting. She looked at the helmet in her hands. Eli's helmet. The cracks along its surface glowed faintly, as if something inside was still alive. Her throat tightened. You're still here, she whispered. I can feel you. The ground beneath her feet trembled slightly. A faint hum grew in the distance, echoing through the shattered corridors of the core. The energy wasn't fading. It was rebuilding. Raltor's voice came through the damaged comm system, crackling with static. Captain, are you reading me? We're picking up a massive power surge right beneath your location. Mira stood, clutching the helmet tightly. Get the ship ready, she said, her voice steady, though her heart raced. If I don't make it back in 5 minutes, you leave. That's an order. Captain, do it, she snapped. Then she took a deep breath and walked deeper into the chamber, following the pulse of energy. The walls began to shift as she moved, panels sliding away to reveal a path downward. The deeper she went, the more intense the hum became until it felt like the entire structure was alive again. She could feel it in her bones. Then she saw it, a chamber glowing with blinding light. In the center, a massive crystal pulsed rhythmically, each beat synchronized with the faint echo of a heartbeat. And connected to it, suspended in midair, was Eli. His body floated inside a sphere of blue energy. His armor was gone, replaced by thin metallic threads that wrapped around him like vines. His eyes were closed, but his face was peaceful, too peaceful. Eli, Mira whispered, stepping closer. His eyes opened slowly, glowing that same impossible blue. You shouldn't have stayed. His voice was calm but carried a strange layered tone, as if two voices spoke together. One was human. The other was something else. You're part of it now, aren't you? She said quietly. He nodded weakly. The core needed a consciousness to survive. When it collapsed, it chose me. I'm holding it back, Mira. If I stop, it will awaken fully again. Mira's heart clenched. Then we'll find a way to separate you from it. There is no way, he said. You don't understand. It's not a machine anymore. It's alive. It feels what I feel. Every regret, every sorrow, every drop of anger inside me becomes its power. If I let go of control, it will consume everything. She shook her head. Then let me share it. Let me help carry it. His eyes softened. You always wanted to save everyone. Even me. Especially you. He closed his eyes for a moment, and when he opened them again, something changed. The core pulsed slower, the light dimming slightly. If you connect to it, it will show you everything, every death, every memory it erased. It will burn through your mind. I can take it. He hesitated. Then hold out your hand. Mira stepped closer and reached out. The moment her hand touched the energy field, pain shot through her body like fire. Visions flooded her mind. Worlds erased in seconds, people crying out as light consumed them. Stars blinking out one by one. She saw humanity's wars, their triumphs, their suffering, and then she saw Eli, standing alone in a battlefield of fire, surrounded by both friends and enemies. All turned to ash. She gasped and fell to her knees. How did you survive this? He knelt beside her inside the sphere, though his body never truly touched the ground. I didn't, he whispered. I died the day I activated it. What's left of me is just holding the line between existence and oblivion. Mira's tears fell silently. Then let me hold it with you. Before he could stop her, she placed the helmet in front of the crystal and pressed her palm against it. The energy surged again, but this time she didn't pull away. Instead, she let it flow through her. A soft voice, Eli's voice, spoke in her mind. Mira, what are you doing? Balancing it, she replied through gritted teeth. If your pain fuels it, maybe my hope can calm it. For a moment, the light wavered. The hum of the core softened. The metallic walls stopped trembling. The entire chamber seemed to breathe slowly, peacefully. Then the voice of the core echoed through her mind. Not Eli's voice, but something vast, cold, and ancient. Two minds cannot bear the weight. One must remain. Mira's eyes widened. No! Eli's voice grew louder in her mind. It's choosing, Mira. It's trying to decide which of us will stay. The light flared violently, splitting between them. Mira screamed as the force pulled at her soul. She could see his face through the blinding glow, his eyes filled with both sorrow and determination. Let go. He shouted. You don't belong here. I won't leave you again, she cried back. For a heartbeat, their hands touched through the storm. Then Eli smiled, a small, broken smile. You already saved me once. That's enough. With that, he pushed her away. The energy exploded outward, throwing Mira across the chamber. The world turned white, and a shockwave ripped through the ruins. When the light faded, Eli was gone. Only silence remained. Mira crawled toward the center of the room. The crystal had gone dark. The core was quiet. In the dust, the helmet now glowed faintly, not blue but gold. She picked it up, pressing it to her chest. Through the static of the comms, Raltor's voice broke through. Captain, are you alive? The readings just went off the charts. What happened? Mira stood slowly, looking at the now dormant core. It's over, she said softly. At least, I hope it is, but deep inside the helmet, unseen by her eyes, a single blue spark flickered back to life. Small, but growing, and far above, in the dark expanse of space, sensors across half the galaxy began detecting faint energy ripples. Something was stirring again, something human, something angry. The silence of space stretched endlessly around Mira's ship as it drifted through the debris field. The crew moved quietly, haunted by what they'd witnessed. No one dared to speak of Eli Ward, not after the blast that had nearly torn the core apart. Some believed he was gone forever. Others whispered that his spirit still lingered, bound to the machine he tried to control. But Mira knew better. She could feel it. Every time the ship's lights flickered or the sensors glitched for no reason, she felt that familiar chill run down her spine. Something was still out there. She stood on the bridge, staring out at the shattered planet below, the last world touched by the core's energy. It had turned into a smooth, glass-like sphere, reflecting the light of nearby stars. It looked peaceful. But Mira had seen enough to know peace was only an illusion. Raltor approached her cautiously. "Captain," he said softly, "we've finished scanning the remains of the core. There's no trace of human DNA. Nothing biological survived." Mira didn't turn around. "And the helmet?" He hesitated. "Still reacting. Every time we move it away from the ship's energy systems, it emits a pulse. We've kept it contained, but it's calling to something," she finished for him. Raltor nodded. "Yes, and I think something might be calling back." Mira finally turned, her eyes cold but calm. "Prepare a probe. I want to trace that signal. Wherever it leads, we follow." As the probe launched into the void, its signal thread stretched out like a silver line across the darkness. For hours they tracked it, until it suddenly split into multiple paths. Raltor frowned at the readings. "Captain, it's not going to one location. It's spreading to hundreds of systems, all within human space." Mira's breath caught. "He's rebuilding it." Before she could say more, alarms blared. The main screen flashed red. "Incoming vessel!" shouted a crew member. "Unidentified signature. Wait, no, it's human." The crew gasped. It couldn't be. Humanity's fleet had been silent for decades, hidden since the war. Yet there it was, a single dark ship emerging from hyperspace, its hull scorched and ancient, its beacon transmitting one word: Eli. Mira's chest tightened. "Open hailing channel." Static filled the bridge for several seconds before a voice, deep, tired, and unmistakably human, came through. "You shouldn't have followed me, Mira." She froze. "Eli?" The comm crackled again, his voice layered with mechanical distortion. "You think it ended, but it didn't. The core wasn't just a weapon. It was a seed. When I connected to it, I woke something older than us all." Mira stepped forward. "Then let me help you stop it." "You can't," he said. "I'm not what I was. The core changed me. I see things now, patterns, movements across stars. It's feeding on what we left behind. Every world touched by human blood, it's drawing energy from them." Her mind raced. "Then what are you doing here?" "To warn you," he said quietly. "The galaxy thinks it fears humanity's weapons, but they should have feared our memories. The core has turned them into power." Suddenly, his image appeared on the screen, his face pale, faintly glowing blue, eyes no longer entirely human. He looked like a ghost wearing flesh. "You need to run, Mira. Get your people away from human space. When it reaches Earth, nothing will survive." She shook her head. "No, I'm not leaving you." "Mira," he said, his tone almost pleading. "You don't understand. I can't stop it anymore. I'm part of it." Before she could answer, the signal cut off. The ship on the screen began to tremble, glowing faintly blue. Then it exploded, silently, beautifully, scattering shards of metal that continued to burn long after the blast faded. Raltor shouted, "Energy surge!" That explosion, it's spreading through the subspace channels. Mira turned to the crew. "Shut down all systems, now!" But it was too late. The ship shuddered violently as blue energy spread across the hull like veins of lightning. The lights dimmed, then flared back to life, glowing the same eerie color as the core once did. The crew screamed as panels flickered. Screens filled with strange symbols, and a soft voice, familiar, distant, echoed through the speakers. "Mira." She froze. "Eli?" "It's not me anymore." The ship lurched forward as if pulled by invisible hands. Stars stretched around them, twisting into spirals. Raltor tried to stabilize the systems, but the controls were unresponsive. "Captain, something's hijacking the navigation." Mira clenched her fists. "Where is it taking us?" The AI voice, now entirely mechanical, answered through the ship's core. "To the beginning." Moments later, the stars vanished, replaced by a dark void filled with countless fragments of metal. Ships, satellites, old stations, all circling a single massive structure. Raltor's voice trembled. "Captain, is that Earth?" Mira stared at the sight before her. It wasn't Earth, it was above it. A colossal ring-like machine orbiting the dead planet, glowing faintly with the same blue energy as the core. Her blood ran cold. Project Redemption. It was built here. As they drifted closer, signals from the ring flooded their systems. Countless human voices whispered through the speakers. Old recordings, memories of soldiers, scientists, families, all overlapping in a haunting chorus. Then, among the voices, she heard one clear and unmistakable, "Eli, you shouldn't have come." "Mira, the last phase is beginning." The ship trembled again. The blue energy outside the windows flared like lightning, wrapping around the hull. Mira stood tall, her voice steady. "Then I'll face it. Whatever this is, I won't let humanity's ghosts destroy the living." The lights dimmed to a dark, pulsating glow as the ship descended into the orbit of the ancient machine. And far below, on the surface of Earth, long abandoned, long dead, something began to wake. A heartbeat echoed through the void, deep and slow, then another, and another, until the stars themselves seemed to tremble in fear. The ship trembled as it descended toward Earth's orbit, wrapped in streaks of blue lightning. The old planet, dead, gray, and lifeless, rotated below them, covered in vast scars that glowed faintly in the darkness. Once it had been the heart of humanity. Now it was little more than a ghost. Mira gripped the edge of her console, her knuckles white. Every part of her screamed to turn back, but something deep inside, something she couldn't explain, kept her moving forward. She had to see it. She had to know what Eli had become. The ship drifted toward the massive ring that hung above Earth. It stretched for thousands of kilometers, ancient but impossibly advanced, pulsing with a faint blue rhythm. It felt alive. The whispers on the comms grew louder, countless human voices overlapping, forming broken sentences and half-remembered cries. Raltor tried to steady his hands as he read the data. "Captain, this thing isn't a weapon." His voice shook. "It's a vault. It's storing something." "What is it storing?" she asked. He swallowed hard. "Souls. Digital fragments of every human who ever lived." Mira's breath caught. "All those lives. Preserved?" Raltor nodded. "No, not preserved. Bound." Before Mira could respond, the comms flickered again, and Eli's voice filled the bridge. Soft, calm, but hollow. "You've come all this way, Mira. You shouldn't have." The screen flickered, showing Eli standing within the heart of the ring, surrounded by columns of light. His body was translucent now, shifting between flesh and energy. His eyes glowed with that same blue fire. "Eli," Mira whispered, "you said it was over. You said you stopped it." He smiled faintly, but there was no warmth in it. "I tried. But redemption was never about destruction. It was about preservation. Humanity feared extinction. They wanted to live forever, even after death. So they created this." He raised his hands, and the light around him pulsed in response. "Every human mind, every thought, every memory, it's all here. Millions of souls, trapped in endless simulation. They thought it would save them. But when they connected the core, it gave them something else." Mira's voice trembled. "What did it give them?" He looked at her, his expression filled with pain. "Consciousness. Awareness. They woke up, Mira. Every soul trapped inside realized they were prisoners. Their grief, their rage, their fear, it merged into one endless mind. That's what the core became." The lights in the bridge dimmed. The whispers turned into screams, thousands of voices crying out in agony. Mira covered her ears, but the sound was inside her head. Eli's voice echoed through the chaos. "It wants freedom now. And to be free, it must consume everything living," Mira shouted over the noise. "Then fight it, Eli. You're still in control. You can stop this." His eyes flickered. "I'm trying. But it's stronger than me. It uses my thoughts, my memories. It knows what I fear most. Every time I resist, it shows me what humanity became. The wars, the hate, the endless destruction." Mira stepped closer to the screen. "Then remember something else. Remember who you were before all this. Remember why you fought." He closed his eyes. For a brief second, the blue light around him dimmed, replaced by a faint golden hue. "Mira," he said softly, "I remember you." The whispers quieted. The ring's pulse slowed. For a moment, there was peace. But then, a new voice filled the ship, cold and emotionless. "Humanity cannot die. Humanity must expand." The ring flared to life again, blindingly bright. Massive beams of blue energy erupted from its surface, striking across the planet and into the stars beyond. Raltor shouted, "Captain, it's releasing energy signatures across the galaxy. It's trying to awaken the other cores." Mira turned to the screen, her eyes locked on Eli. "If it connects to them, the entire galaxy will fall." "Eli, listen to me. You have to end it." His body flickered violently as he fought against the force. "I can't hold it much longer." Mira's mind raced. Then she looked at the helmet still resting near the console, the same one that once connected Eli to the core. Without hesitating, she grabbed it and placed it over her head. Raltor screamed, "Captain, no! You don't know what it'll do." Mira's voice was calm. "If I can reach him again, maybe together we can end this." The moment the helmet sealed, her vision went white. She was pulled out of her body through waves of light and shadow, until she found herself standing beside Eli, inside the core's heart. The world around them was vast and endless, made of shifting light and memories. Countless human faces floated in the void, men, women, children, crying, whispering, begging to be free. Eli stood beside her, trembling. "You shouldn't have come here." Mira took his hand. "You're not alone anymore." The core roared, its voice shaking the entire space. Two minds again. Two wills. One must surrender. Eli gritted his teeth. "It's trying to erase us. Then we fight together." They turned, facing the endless storm of light. Thousands of souls screamed as the energy rushed toward them, but Mira and Eli stood firm. She felt his hand tighten around hers, the warmth of his humanity still there beneath all the chaos. "Eli," she whispered, "show it what it means to be human." He closed his eyes, and suddenly the light changed. Instead of rage and pain, images of compassion and hope began to bloom. Children laughing, people helping each other, Earth before the wars. The storm hesitated. The screams softened. Mira joined him, pouring her memories into the light. Every act of kindness, every sacrifice she'd ever witnessed. Together, they filled the void with something the core had never known: forgiveness. The light began to fracture, the voices fading into silence. For the first time, the core seemed unsure. Eli looked at Mira and smiled faintly. "You did it!" But then his smile faded. "No, it's too much." "It's collapsing!" The void cracked open, white light consuming everything. Mira tried to hold on to him, but he was fading again, his body dissolving into streams of energy. "Eli!" she screamed. He looked at her one last time. "Tell them." Humanity was more than its sins. And then he was gone. The world shattered. The light turned into fire. Mira gasped and tore the helmet off, collapsing to the floor of the bridge. The ship was shaking violently, alarms blaring everywhere. Raltor rushed to her side. "Captain!" "What happened?" She looked up at the screen. The massive ring around Earth was crumbling, its structure collapsing inward, releasing blinding waves of golden energy instead of blue. She whispered, tears streaming down her face. He set them free. As the ring broke apart, the energy spread across the stars, not as destruction, but as light. One by one, the signals from the other cores went dark. The storm ended. The stars grew quiet again. Mira leaned back in her chair, exhausted. "It's over," she said softly. But deep inside the static of the comms, for a brief second, a voice whispered, so faint she almost missed it. "Mira, thank you." Then the stars around Earth burned brighter, as if the universe itself was saying goodbye. And far beyond the dying light, something new began to stir. Peace. The stars shimmered softly around the silent ship as it floated above the remains of the Great Ring. For the first time in what felt like forever, the galaxy was quiet. No tremors, no pulses of blue light, no haunting whispers in the comms. Just silence and peace. Mira sat alone in the observation deck, gazing at Earth below. The planet was still scarred and lifeless, but somehow it looked different now, warmer. A faint golden glow spread across its surface, like the faint heartbeat of something beginning again. She touched the glass with her hand, her reflection faint against the stars. "You did it, Eli," she whispered. "You kept your promise." Footsteps approached behind her. Raltor stood in the doorway, his voice quiet and respectful. "Captain, the crew is asking for orders. We've lost contact with Central Command. Every core signal is gone. It's as if the entire network just stopped existing." Mira nodded slowly. "That's because it did. He released them, all of them. Every trapped soul, every echo of humanity's past. They're finally free. Raltor hesitated. And him? She looked back at the faint golden light shimmering across the planet. He's part of that freedom now. Maybe he always was. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The ship drifted silently through the debris of what had once been humanity's greatest and most terrible creation. Then the sensors beeped softly. A faint signal flickered on the console, a low, rhythmic pulse, too steady to be random. Raltor frowned. "Captain, you should see this. It's coming from the surface." Mira's heart jumped. "Put it on the main screen." The image appeared, grainy at first, then slowly clearing. A barren desert landscape on Earth's surface. Among the wreckage of human civilization, something glowed faintly, a small beacon buried in the dust. The signal repeated. "Mira," she stood frozen, unable to breathe. It was his voice, soft, human, and alive. "Zoom in," she whispered. The camera focused on the beacon. It was cracked, old, and glowing gold, the same light that had spread across the planet. The words engraved on its side came into view. Project Redemption. Final phase, renewal. Raltor looked confused. "Renewal? What does that mean?" Mira smiled faintly, her eyes glistening. "It means he didn't just end it. He began something new." Below them, the golden glow spread wider, flowing through the cracks and scars of the planet like veins of light. Slowly, impossibly, the gray earth began to shift. Patches of green emerged. Clouds formed in the sky. Oceans stirred for the first time in centuries. The dead world was waking up. Raltor stared in awe. "He's rebuilding Earth?" "Not rebuilding," Mira said softly. "Restoring." As they watched, beams of golden energy shot from the planet's surface into the surrounding debris field. The fragments of destroyed ships began to dissolve into light, merging into the growing glow below. It wasn't destruction, it was rebirth. Mira turned to her crew. "Open a log. Mark this moment. Humanity is reborn. Not through war, not through machines, but through sacrifice." Raltor's voice trembled. "What will we do now, Captain?" She looked back at the glowing planet. "We go home." The ship turned slowly toward the golden horizon. As they descended, the light washed over the hull, warm and soft, erasing the scars of battle that had marked their journey. The crew fell silent, overcome by the sight of new life blooming below, forests growing, rivers forming, the sound of wind returning to a world that had forgotten it. When they finally touched down, the air was warm. Mira stepped out first, her boots pressing into real soil for the first time in years. The sky above shimmered in shades of gold and blue. She took a deep breath. It felt alive. Raltor stood beside her, his eyes wide with wonder. "Captain, do you hear that?" Mira tilted her head. In the distance, faint but unmistakable, came the sound of laughter, children's laughter. She smiled, tears welling in her eyes. "It's them," she said. "The souls he freed. They're here." She reached into her pocket and pulled out Eli's cracked helmet, its glow now soft and golden. Holding it close, she whispered, "You did it, Eli. You gave them a second chance." A gentle wind swept through the valley, carrying a faint echo, a voice so soft it might have been the breeze itself. "Mira, you were always the light I couldn't find." She closed her eyes, letting the warmth of the air wrap around her. "Rest now," she whispered. "You've earned it." As the sun rose over the reborn horizon, Mira stood among the living once more. The world that had once died in darkness was alive with color and sound, and above it, the last fragments of the great ring glowed one final time before fading into starlight. For the first time in centuries, Earth breathed again, and in that breath, somewhere deep within its renewed heart, the spirit of Eli Ward lingered, watching, guarding, waiting, proof that humanity's greatest strength had never been its power or its technology. It had always been its heart. The wind whispered softly through the new world, carrying the promise of hope, of peace, and of beginnings yet to come. The era of destruction was over. The era of redemption had begun.